everyone, I'm a classically trained oil painter, and today I'm going to be talking about references. How do you take a reference? Where do you find references? What makes a good reference from a bad one? All of the above. If there's anything that I missed, please leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Okay, good references. The first thing you're going to look for in a reference is visible light and shadow side. A lot of images tend to look flat without light and shadow. I mean, if you think about it, the only reason that our eyes are perceiving anything in the world right now is because of light. So a test to determine if a reference will translate well into a painting, or if the light and shadow side is really strong in a painting or in a reference, is turning it to black and white. So in this image here, this is an example of it's a fine reference. You could draw this. Any of the references I'm going to show here, you could draw. It just will be more difficult and it won't lend itself as well to a painting or a drawing. So this isn't a great reference. Turning it to black and white, you can see there isn't really visible light and shadow side. The light's coming from the front. There isn't a whole lot of contrast in the face. It'll be more difficult to render this face. Okay, now this reference is fantastic when it comes to light and shadow side. There's clear, defined shadow and light, and it will lend itself really well to a drawing or a painting. Here's another example of this. On the left is a pretty flat reference. On the right is a reference with a really good light source, and you can see what a difference that makes, and it will make a difference in your drawing and painting, especially when you're first starting out. This is a pretty simple concept, and I'm sure that you've probably heard this before, but it will make such a huge difference and will make your life just so much easier. Just trust me. Okay, the second thing that I look for in references, arguably the most important thing in a reference, is does it inspire me? Does it excite me? Am I willing to spend 30 plus hours staring at this image and rendering this image? Because trust me, at some point you're probably going to get sick of it and you're going to be like, why did I do this? In the middle of every painting, there is that point. You need that inspiration to push you through a little bit. Am I going to be willing to push through 30 hours of painting staring at this image? Because I will say, having a reference that excites you and inspires you to paint will make you work harder, and it will help you push through those hours and hours and hours in the studio where you're working on teeny tiny fingers or little tiny details in buildings and working with perspective and all the hard things. You will be a lot less likely to leave those paintings abandoned or to rush through your painting if you have an end idea in mind of what this painting is going to look like and what you want to portray in this painting. The truth is, the more you love your reference, the more work you're going to put into that painting. The more excited you are for a finished piece, the harder you're going to work to get there, and the more you're going to improve along the way. And that hard work, really, trust me, that love of the reference is going to show up in your painting. All the time, people tell me, I feel like I know you because of your work. And I feel like I can tell that you love painting because of your paintings. To be fair, my style is very colorful and happy, and I was trained classically, and I drifted a little bit more into the land of Impressionism, and I just because I love color, and I love color in places where there really shouldn't be color. So I will say that could be because of my style in general, but people really can tell when you loved working on a painting, or when you put your heart and soul into a painting. People can see it most of the time, and it's just going to make you love the process all the more. It's going to be so much fun, and who doesn't want a reference that they love? Another piece of advice that I'll give is cling to the thing that you love most about your reference and make sure that it shows through in your painting. An example of this would be, I once painted a little pink teapot on my grandma's windowsill, and the reason I loved it so much was because of the light shining through the windowsill by the pink teapot. There were so many colors, and it just was so sweet and ethereal and fairy tale like. And so that was what I centered my painting around, was I want this beautiful light to shine through. Hopefully I can find it so that I can show you guys. But I didn't want to get lost in all of the little details, the details in the wood or the window, or I didn't want that to be the focal point. I wanted the light to be the focal point, and I wanted the little pink teapot to be the focal point. So picking a reference also means paying attention to the reason why you love it, the reason why it makes you want to paint it, and then making sure that that is shining through in your painting. And you don't have to render everything in detail either. Okay, let me give another example of this. So let's say you really want to paint this scene of rainy New York City, stormy New York City, and there's a cat in the alley, an adorable little cat, okay? Make sure that in the end, that's what your customers see is the little cat. Make sure that that is the focal point. Keep that focal point true throughout the whole process. You can do that through value studies and there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, but make sure that whatever you initially loved about your reference, whatever made you want to render this reference, want to paint this reference, shows through your painting, and that's what people see first when they look at your painting. Whether it be the little cat in the alley, or whether it be the beautiful, light showing through the window, or whatever it is, whatever made you love that reference, or whatever feeling you want represented in your painting, make people feel that. Make people see what you first saw in the reference. It's going to make people see your painting through your eyes and what you intended, and it's just going to make you love it so much more, and it's going to make people love your art so much more. When there's a piece of you in your art, that's what people care about. The identity in your art is what people care about. When you sell your art in markets or online, people can buy art anywhere. They can buy it on Etsy, at Marshall's, at Target, at fairs. What makes your art unique and what makes people want to own your art is because you made it. They're owning a piece of you in a way. I found that I sell a lot better at markets because people meet me face to face and we have interactions and there's connection and relationship, and they want to take a little piece of me home with them. I mean, that sounds a little funny, but it's true. If you love your art, so will your customers. Okay, I'll move on. Now that I'm done with that tangent, I want to show you how to actually take a good reference. Okay, so first you're going to want to go to settings, open your camera, and make sure that your grid is on. That's going to be very important. So first we're going to take a photo of this adorable pumpkin. We're not going to do anything different. Now we just want to make sure that our subject is working with the rule of thirds, which just means that it is in one of the intersecting lines or aligning with the horizontal or vertical lines. Now that we've done that, we are going to, as much as we can, control the light source. I didn't have a whole lot of control in this photo, unfortunately, but I turned on a light to the right, and then I tried to make as much contrast as I could with what I had. It's still not great, but even with that, you can tell the difference between the first and the second photo. Another test for whether you have a strong or weak reference is, does it stand out at you or jump out at you from across the room? If you are looking at it from across the room, are you drawn to go look at that painting? And a way that you can emulate that is just, on your phone, instead of looking at just the photo, go to gallery so that you can see all of your photos. Which one jumps out at you? If you're taking a bunch of references and you're unsure of which one to pick, go to gallery so that you can see them all really small next to each other. Which one jumps out at you? That's going to be the one that you're going to want to pick, because if it jumps out at you, it's going to jump out at somebody else, and it's a really good indication that the overall composition of your painting is delightful. That being said, where do you find references? So we obviously already went over taking your own reference and some tips for that. It is a little bit trickier outside with uncontrolled light sources and all the things. You can time it with different times of day or easier to paint, but if you aren't looking to take your own reference and you would really like to paint but you don't find joy in taking your own references, then there are a couple options that I recommend. The first one is non-copyrighted image websites. So the first one that comes to mind is Unslashed. I've used it before. Not all of the images are free. Some of them you have to download or pay to download, but most of the images on Unsplash are free. And you can look for anything. You can look for dogs or portraits, and they have a lot of images. Editing Evelyn can look that up later, and I'll put a number, but it's a lot. They have animals and plants and landscapes and seascapes and portraits and all of the above. So if you don't want to take your own reference, this is a really good resource, and there are a lot of other resources like it if this specific one isn't for you. Another recommendation that I don't see a lot of people talking about is using friends and family's photos. I see a lot of Instagram photos or even just stories that people post that are adorable and could totally make a good painting. And trust me, when you ask people to use their photo, 90% of the time, they are delighted and so excited. And more likely than not, you actually have a specific friend in mind who takes crazy aesthetic photos who would be delighted to let you use them. So utilize your friends, guys. And my final word of advice would be to have a separate folder on your phone where you are just constantly contributing reference photos, a place to put the reference photos that you gather so that they're not just sprawled on your phone, and it'll save you so much time. That way, when you know that you're going to paint and you have a specified block of time to paint, you have a bunch of ideas just sitting there that you know that you're inspired by, that you know that you love, and you're not going to waste hours and hours scrolling to try and find a reference. You're just going to have references right there that you already know that you love, and it is wonderful. And you can add photos that you took, photos that your friends took, photos from non-copyrighted image websites, or photos from photographers that you got permission to paint. This is like, you can put all of your photos in one place, and it just makes life so much easier. Okay, I should probably end this video pretty soon because I am not a night owl and my brain is starting to not function anymore. So thank you so much for staying till the end of this video. If you did stay till the end, drop a pumpkin emoji in the comments to let me know, just for fun, because I could do that because this is my YouTube video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fabulous morning or evening or night wherever you are. Bye!